Hello, my name is Donna, and this is one of the books I was given to read. It's called A Tale of Three Trees, a traditional folk tale retold by Angelina Elwell Hunt, illustrations by Tim Jonke. Once upon a mountaintop, the three little trees stood and dreamed of what they wanted to become when they grew up. So begins this enchanting American folktale about three trees' wishes come true in a surprising way. And during this story, let's see if you can figure out the three biblical stories that are revealed through these three trees. At the end, I'll give you a little hint, and I think you can figure it out. For generations, the tale of three trees has been handed down from parents to children, retold in churches, and even set to music and sung. As is often true in folk tales, its originator is unknown. To this person, I am simply grateful. Let's see how this is going to work. There we go. Once upon a mountaintop, three little trees stood and dreamed of what they wanted to become when they grew up. Here they are at the top. 1, 2, 3. You'll notice lots of threes in here. Here's three little mushrooms. The first little tree looked up at the stars twinkling like diamonds above him. I want to hold a treasure, he said. I want to be covered with gold and filled with precious stones. I will be the most beautiful treasure chest in the world. Do you see it up in the sky there? That's his dream. And there he is talking to the stars. The second little tree looked out at the small stream trickling by on its way to the ocean. I want to be a strong sailing ship, he said. I want to travel mighty waters and carry powerful kings. I will be the strongest ship in the world. The third little tree looked down into the valley below, where busy men and busy women working in a busy town. I don't want to leave this mountaintop at all, she said. I want to grow so tall that when people stop and look at me, they will raise their eyes to heaven and think of God. I will be the tallest tree in the world. Years passed. The rains came, the sun shone, and the little trees grew tall. One day, 3 woodcutters climbed the mountain. There they are. And there's our little trees grown all big. The first woodcutter looked at the first tree and said, this tree is beautiful. It's perfect for me. With a swoop of its shining axe, the first tree fell. Now I shall be made into a beautiful chest, thought the first tree. I shall hold wonderful treasure. The second woodcutter looked at the second tree and said, this tree is strong. It's perfect for me. With a swoop of his shining axe, the second tree fell. Now I shall sail mighty waters, thought the second tree. I shall be a strong ship fit for kings. The third tree felt her heart sink when the last woodcutter looked her way. She stood straight and tall and pointed bravely to heaven. But the woodcutter never even looked up. Any kind of tree will do for me, he muttered. With a swoop of his shining axe, the third tree fell. The first tree rejoiced when the woodcutter brought him to a carpenter's shop. But the busy carpenter was not thinking about treasure chests. Instead, his wood-worn hands fashioned the tree into a feed box for animals. The once beautiful tree was not covered with gold or filled with treasure. He was coated with sawdust and filled with hay for hungry farm animals. I wonder what that one's going to be. Can you guess? The second tree smiled when the woodcutter took him to a shipyard, but no mighty sailing ships were being made that day. Instead, the once strong tree was hammered and sawed into a simple fishing boat, too small and too weak to sail an ocean or even a river. He was taken to a little lake. Every day, he brought in loads of dead and smelly fish. Can you figure out what that one's going to be used for? This one's a little trickier. The third tree was confused when the woodcutter cut her into strong beams and left her in a lumberyard. What happened? The once tall tree wondered. All I ever wanted to do was stay on the mountaintop and point to God. Any ideas? We'll find out soon. Many, many days and nights passed. The three trees nearly forgotten about their dreams. But one night, golden starlight poured over the first tree as a young woman placed her newborn baby in the feed box. "I wish I could make a cradle for him," her husband whispered. The mother squeezed his hand and smiled as the starlight shone in the smooth and sturdy wood. "This manger is beautiful," she said, and suddenly the first tree knew he was holding the greatest treasure in the world. Did you figure it out? One evening, a tired traveler and his friends crowded into an old fishing boat. The traveler fell asleep on the second tree as the second tree quietly sailed out into the lake. Soon a thundering and thrashing storm arose. The little tree shuddered. He knew he did not have the strength to carry so many passengers safely through the wind and rain. The tired man awakened. He stood up, stretched out his hands, and said, "Peace." The storm stopped as quickly as it began, and suddenly the second tree knew he was carrying the King of heaven and earth. You know which one that is? On one Friday morning, the third tree was startled when her beams were yanked from the forgotten wood pile. She flinched as she was carried through an angry, cheering crowd and shuddered when soldiers nailed a man's hands to her. She felt ugly and harsh and cruel. Which Friday is this? But on Sunday morning, when the sun rose and the earth trembled with joy beneath her, the third tree knew that God's love had changed everything. It had made the first tree beautiful. It had made the second tree strong. And every time people thought of the third tree, they would think of God. That was better than being the tallest tree in the world. Now, if you look back, here's the three trees. So the manger, I think you figured out, turned into be Christmas, where Mary laid Jesus when he was born. The boat was a little trickier, but the story they're referring to is when Jesus was in the boat. It's Matthew 8, verses 23 to 27. And he calmed the sea during a storm. Then, of course, the last one is the one we're approaching. On the Friday they were referring to was Good Friday, and then he rose on Easter Sunday. So as you're sitting home, I hope you enjoyed the three trees. And I hope you have a blessed day. See you again soon.